What is going on YouTube? This is episode 5 to my DR650 engine rebuild videos in preparation for my Africa trip. In the previous video, we rebuilt and sealed shut the crankcases. Today we'll be bench testing the transmission to make sure that all 5 gears are present. Let's get to it. Let me tell you, bench testing the transmission is critical. It would be a nightmare to find out that the transmission was incorrectly installed only once the engine is back in the bike and you're ready to start her up. Instead, it's much more intelligent to do it whilst the engine is still apart, just after sealing the crankcases. Now, it is possible to test the transmission when the crankcases aren't sealed back together. However, the problem with this is that it's not unlikely that you'll have a shift fork or two pop out of its groove, so it's much more efficient to seal the crankcases and then to test it. Now, of course, in order to do this test correctly, we need to finish putting back the shifting mechanism together. Now, this small little shift pull works in conjunction with the shift drum and the 3 forks, and it helps move the gears into position. It's a small little assembly made up of 2 pins, 2 springs, and these 2 spools. First, the springs. They keep the whole assembly under tension. Once both springs are in, their respective pins slide in. And then finally install both spools. A small zip tie and the whole assembly falls in place. See, it pops right in. Now, this assembly is held in place with 2 retaining plates. They're both held in place with 2 JIS screws, that's Japanese industrial standard screws. Don't attempt to tighten them down with a Phillips head. Both screws get some Loctite, and I give them a couple taps with the impact screwdriver. Next is this gear shift arm. So this is what connects your shifting lever to the shifting mechanism. And its assembly composes of a spring, the shift shaft, and then we have a circlip and a washer. Now when installing the circlip, make sure to install the flat side facing away from you towards the case, and then add on the washer. Now I'm going to position the shifter into place. Now before performing this little test, it's worth it for me to mention that the engine turns the same direction as the wheels. So the crankshaft spins this way, which means that the input shaft spins this way and that the output shaft spins this way. So keep that in mind when performing this bench test and make sure to spin the shafts in the directions they're intended to spin. Now, if you install the shift shaft correctly, your transmission should be in neutral. You can confirm that you're in neutral by rotating one of the two shafts, and they should rotate independently from one another. Now, it's normal to get some drag, but they shouldn't turn together. Now that you've confirmed that you're in neutral, we're going to shift down into first gear. Now it's pretty simple. Your right hand rotates the input shaft and your left hand is going to engage first gear with the shifter. Now if the first gear is correctly engaged, both shafts should not spin independently from each other. As I'm rotating the input shaft, the output shaft goes with it. Now that I've confirmed the first gear, I'm going to give it a little pop back into neutral, just to make sure that neutral is still present. Once I've confirmed neutral, I'm going to make my way up through the gearbox, so that's second, third, fourth and fifth, and then I'm going to confirm fifth gear. The second gear is confirmed, moving on to the third gear. The third gear is confirmed, moving on to the fourth is confirmed, and moving on to the fifth gear. Right, so I'm in fifth gear, and to confirm the presence of fifth gear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and shift into the sixth gear. Now, although there isn't a sixth gear on the DR transmission, this gives me a good indication that I've reached the fifth gear. Perfect, I can confirm the presence of fifth gear. Now I'm going to go back down through the gearbox, so fourth, third, second, and then I'm going to go to first, and I'm going to perform the same procedure that I did with fifth to confirm the presence of the first gear. Right, perfect, so the first gear is confirmed. Now just for safe measure, I'm going to pop the transmission into neutral and make sure that the shafts spin independently from each other. Perfect, neutral is confirmed and the transmission is working as it should. Now as you can see, the transmission test went really smoothly, and let me tell you, it's not all smooth sailing, and I'm saying that because it looks good on camera, right? It looks perfect, but if you really want to know, I actually installed the transmission, so the shift drum, incorrectly, and the bike wouldn't shift. The transmission didn't work, and I've done this engine rebuild 3 or 4 times. I've rebuilt DR engines, and I just misplaced the shift drum, and it wasn't in neutral. So it's super important to place the shift drum in neutral and to set it up that way. Perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the shift shaft with the shifting lever. Install both dowel pins with some anti-seize. is the gasket, which I'm going to coat on both sides with white lithium grease. The cover should pop right on. Before installing the 6 retaining bolts, I'm going to go ahead and slide on the oil seal, and that's the countershaft oil seal with its retaining cover plate. To prevent damaging the seal, I'm using this DIY bullet. It's a combination of a Ziploc bag with a generous amount of grease. Go ahead and slide it on and tap it in with the appropriate size sockets. It's super important to not tap it in too far. There's an oil passage directly behind it, and it's super important to just tap it in flush. I actually measured the distance between the seal's mating surface and the oil passage, and you really just want to make it sit flush. Now, it's not unheard of having this oil seal back out, especially on cold starts when the oil is much thicker. Now, the purpose of this oil seal retaining plate is pretty simple. It retains the oil seal. Perfect. Now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and install the remaining cover bolts. Start by hand tightening them, making sure they're all snug, and then in a crisscross fashion, I'm going to tighten them down to their required 11 Newton meters. Voila. Now to finish off this assembly is this shift shaft seal. And this shift shaft seal was installed exactly like the countershaft one, with a Ziploc bag and a generous amount of grease. It slides right on. And voila. So there you have it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode where we'll be rebuilding the clutch side of things. Cheers.